Next guest up tonight for the show, it is our bud here, Sean Fuller. How are you doing, Sean?
I am doing absolutely wonderful. How are you all doing out there?
Everybody's good. I told you before we started here, you've already got people just like cheering you on. I mean, Sarah's here and Tori. It's just super cool seeing all the folks here. We'll, of course, get into what this hashtag Chorus Crew is about on the show tonight here after a little bit. But before we get into that, like we talked about, I would love to get some background on how you got into drumming. I was looking at a lot of the groups you've played with and everything you've done. And I know a lot of drummers who were like rock drummers that ended up doing country, like Rich Redmond is another person.
Yeah.
And it's so cool to see that. And, you guys are a big reason why that rock sound is carried through in drums, I feel like. But tell us how you first got into drumming. What first drew you to it?
Interestingly enough, when I tell people the story of like how it all began, it kind of just involves my family. Everybody in our family kind of played a little something, and my dad was and I think still kind of stumbles around on a little bit here and there, but guitar player, bass player, singer. And back when I was a kid, you know, it, we'd watch his band rehearse out in the garage all the time, and their band was woodshedding, and just a fun bar band, that kind of thing. And but it was always fun to watch, as a kid. Like you didn't know what was going on too much, but you really enjoyed it. You know what I'm saying? Like it was just kind of thoroughly enjoying. And then through some of his band members, especially their drummer at the time, it was just, I was always drawn to the drums. It looked like something that was like, it was like a jungle gym. It looked super fun. And when you're a kid,
That's a good way to put it. A jungle gym. That's excellent.
it's like that thing that you want to go do more than anything. Like, there's the slides and the swings, but the jungle gym is like the biggest thing. And so you see the drums and I would sit behind them and I would bang around on them. And then, then that switched up to, I'm going to age myself here. That switched to, pots and pans and Tupperware and, all the things that every drummer probably beats on there for a while before their, mom and dad finally go, okay, fine, let's get them
Right.
let's get a drum kit,
They give in finally.
they give in. They're tired of hearing the sound of pots and pans, and so let's give him something that that he can actually take his aggressions out on that makes some musical noise. And drums was that outlet for me.
That's so cool. So, how old were you when they finally broke down and got you a drum set?
Ah, gosh, I was at the ripe old age of 6.
Dang, that's amazing. That's killer. Do you remember, like, tell me about that first kit? Do you remember it?
Yeah, actually, it lasted all of 3 days. It was, if you, I'm 53 now, and so, we're going to go back that far. We're talking about drum sets that were basically made of aluminum and paper.
Right,
Uh,
right. And
and
then
so,
you have the cymbals with like those little rivets on it, right? That like sizzle, make it
exactly,
sizzle.
exactly. And so that was like, I want to say it was either I can't remember if it was a Looney Tunes or like I think it was like a Looney Tunes style drum kit that was under the Christmas tree. And I want to say at like 3 o'clock in the morning, I was waking the parents up, beating on the thing already. And, uh,
That's awesome.
and that, again, that lasted just a couple of a couple of weeks or so because I done broke it. And then it kind of went from there to, dad taking me to a music store in Indiana where I'm from, in Evansville, Indiana, from where I was, born and raised. And always had a bunch of dad always had a bunch of musician friends around town. And the next kit was a set of just sparkle blue Slingerlands, believe it or not. Um, just very, very old kit. And if I'd have known back then what I know today, I would have kept that kit instead of being an
Right.
idiot
Yeah,
getting rid of
I remember my
it.
drum teacher had a Slingerland kit, and it was amazing. It sounded great.
But it quickly went from that to a pearl set. It was, believe it or not, was the first real, I guess, kit that I sat behind. And of course, by that time I was, probably 9 or 10, 11, somewhere in that neighborhood. And MTV was a big influence on me, and all the things that were happening on MTV at the time. And rock and roll had done, the rock and roll bug had already bit. And so, at that point, I'm watching all these drummers play, and everybody's got two bass drums and four rack toms and two, all the bells and whistles. And Neil Peart's got a freaking cowbell tree, not
Right.
one cowbell, but
Right.
five. And so, like, you start to see all this magic happening and all the creativity happening, and it's overwhelming, but at the same time, it's so creative that it just like, man, it was like a drug that was like straight to your vein that just kept feeding you and wanting you to do more, you know?
Oh wow, yeah. No, I got that, man, and especially that time of that era with the MTV happening, and like Def Leppard's out there, Poison, Motley Crue, all that stuff is going on, and that was the kind of music. Was that the kind of music you were into? That kind of rock and roll music, like
Yeah,
Headbangers Ball type stuff.
oh, absolutely. Like in fact, Headbangers Ball, Ricky Rackman, the whole nine yards, like that was my go-to outlet, and that was, if I wasn't, uh, either like, I don't know, blocked from my parents to watch it or something, because back then, there was, I don't know, there was also, TV shows that was trying to denounce rock and roll, and then you had Twisted Sister trying to, help out with the whole stickers on albums, and then it just became this big thing. But, my parents loved that I was involved in music. They just first, there was a big change in the music scene, and of course, I had to hide my Kiss records. I had to hide my Motley Crue records. I had to,
Right,
you
they were
know,
the devil's music.
oh
Or
yeah, the
Ozzy.
AC.
Ozzy was a big bad thing to have too.
Oh yeah, Black Sabbath,
Yeah,
all of that, and it took a long time for that appreciation from them to understand like what that was really about, but I'm just so thankful that my dad introduced me to a lot of bands that many that people have heard of, like the Queen and Zeppelin, obviously those bands, but there was also Head East, there was Rick Emmett, there was Triumph, there was, oh gosh, anything from that to Oak Ridge Boys in Alabama, to Hank Williams, to Doobie Brothers, to just
Kansas,
all
stuff like
of
that.
yeah,
Yeah,
Blue Oyster Cult and Bad Company and all those bands. Boston was a big influence. Just those bands that like, I don't know, you don't hear much about them today, but man, did they shape the future for so many people, you know?
totally they did. Yeah. So when you were back there and you hiding kind of your albums and stuff, what were you jamming along to on your drums to get by? Don't tell me
No,
Donny Osmond, okay?
no, 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 no,
It's
no,
not
no, no,
that
no, no,
bad.
no. So one of my earliest, I guess, in the realm of big rock and roll influences, was Alex Van Halen, and I was just, gosh dang, from the size of the kit to how he was playing it, and just the grooves and the way that it translated with the songs that were being done with Van Halen, to me at the time, were incredible. But then again, right next to that was a way more, like, just a completely different style of drumming in Phil Rudd with AC/DC, and it was just very simple, meat and potatoes, but just carried the song. You know what I'm saying? And so I had those influences that ranged from something very progressive, like a Neil Peart, or an Alex Van Halen, or whatever, to maybe a Nick Mason from Pink Floyd, or a Phil Rudd from AC/DC, or you know uh, something in that line. But throughout the years, I learned to appreciate so many vast different drummers and different styles of playing in different bands, that maybe, it's funny. I talk to people all the time about bands that, they may not even remember and or recognize, but then when they go back and listen to it, like, oh God, that was some incredible playing. Like, Yes I was a big fan of the band Yes, and Alan White and Bill Bruford's playing. Um, so, I go, I kind of scan the gamut, if you will, as far as
Yeah, but
music
it's
is.
it's so cool because you're right. Like the music of the day back then, um, that people talk about now are all those groups that are like going on the stadium tours now. Like I said, Def Leppard, Poison, Motley Crue, stuff like that. But they're not talking about Boston or Kansas or Yes or Asia, stuff
Asia,
like
another one.
that. Yeah, all those kind of Triumph you mentioned.
Yep,
No one
yep,
really talks about those groups, but they were definitely an impact. It's
big time.
very cool. So, um, about how old were you? Do you think, Sean, when you got in your first band?
Oh gosh. Well, so oddly enough, to kind of circle back to your original question, which was, you know, uh, as far as playing wise and who got me and started. So, my dad, the very first band that I was in was with my dad,
That's so
uh,
cool. I like that.
and so it's, when I say first band that was like really teaching me something. I mean, there was a couple of, you try to put, a couple of your buddies from school together or something like, but it never pans. It's just, it never rehearsals never pan out. But my dad, they needed a drummer at one point, and I want to say I was, gosh, 16, maybe 17, and they needed a drummer for what they were doing, and honestly, it was anything from classic rock to country, and so at that point I was starting to get more of an introduction to what country was, and that playing style. But I was playing in bars and clubs, southern Indiana all the way up through northern Indiana, 16, 17 years old. And obviously, like, at that time, the rest of the band's hanging out having a brew at the bar, and they're sitting me way over at the other side of the room
Yeah.
holding a sippy cup with Kool-Aid in it or
Right,
something.
right. Seriously,
Uh,
that's
but
awesome.
but that's you know, I went through all of those things, and I've played everything. I've played the dive bars. I've played the tiny places. I played the hole in the walls. My dad used to this is gonna be gross. My dad used to call them choke and pukes. But he's like, yeah.
Oh
So
my
I've
god.
played all these places, and I've seen bar brawls break out. I've been, at the 16, 17-year-old being hit on by 45-year-olds, so
Dang. You've seen it
you know
all, even at that age.
even at that age, like, I had already just kind of run the gamut of that. But the thing is that I loved it, man. I appreciated it all, because it really kind of, focused me a bit more as to what I wanted to do outside of that. And I loved playing with my dad. I thought it was a great time, but there was also that part where you're just like, man, I really need to, spread my wings and do something else. And I ended up in my own cover tune band, three-piece band there in Evansville, Indiana. And it's so funny when I talk about this stuff, because when I tell people about it, every bit of this is what shaped me to be able to play with a touring act today. Um, and it was a band that back then, we didn't have Pro Tools and Logic and all those things to run tracks to. We had ADAT,
I remember that looked like a video, like a videotape almost, right? Yeah,
Exactly,
yeah.
it's like videotape, and so tracks running, having a band playing to tracks. Back then, you were running an ADAT machine, and I was in a three-piece band, and we were doing, anything from like Asia, believe it or not, to like, Chicago and things like that. And how do you perform? How do you play a song by Chicago that's got horn parts in it when you're a three-piece band,
I can't even. I didn't even know that people ran tracks with ADAT back then. I mean, I remember. Wasn't there a big thing? Was it Britney Spears or somebody, and they were on like Saturday Night Live, and they were using like a CD, and it skipped or something. I remember that happened. Or Milli Vanilli. I can't
Milli
remember.
Vanilli moments,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, something like that.
Oh,
It's so
it's just
crazy. I can That sounds like super painful to be
it's
playing along
really
with something like
talented,
that.
but what's funny about, how people just kind of ran that, everybody was so mad at the time when that happened, and now it happens like it's nothing today, like
Right. No big deal.
everybody's using tracks
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that kind of thing, and
Yep.
nobody cares now.
No,
But
nobody does.
so I mean, I kind of feel bad for them back then, but so it doing that band really got me used to playing to a click. It got me used to listening to tracks in my ears with a click, and learning to uh, play the part that I'm supposed to play in perfect time with the band and making things sound great. And little did I know that, that would translate just a few years later when I moved to Nashville, you know what I'm saying? And so, uh, what an amazing thing. And again, I look back in time at these moments and these things that happened, and I'm like, I was being shaped for something. I just didn't know what it was at the time.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. When you got from so you went from 6 to 16, and in that
Yeah.
time, did you
Oh,
start taking lessons from someone? Were you doing drums in school or anything?
I literally, if it had band after it, I was doing pep
Uh
band,
huh.
I was doing concert band, marching band. I tell people I did rubber band. I don't even know what that is, but I did rubber band. No, like I had there was a teacher in Evansville, is only teacher I knew of, at the time. His name was Greg Tooley. And he would teach at this little in Newburgh, Indiana, this little radio shack that was there that eventually became a music store called More Music. And I think that store still exists in Evansville. But it was a radio shack at the time. But they were, he was teaching drum lessons in there, and I don't know how my dad knew them or anything like that. But I do know that he got me going in lessons, learning the basics, just like anybody would. And I would say that, it frustrated me. It drove me crazy because, my teacher is just like me when I teach. Like he would not let me touch the drum set until I learned all the basic rudiments and could play them fluently. And so, during that time, it's very frustrating because you're sitting in this room with this guy and you've got this snare drum in front of you and sticks, and over in the corner is this really nice drum set that looks beautiful, and all you want to do is walk over there and start banging on it. But you had to really be patient and concentrate on what this one drum and what this one voice was, which is kind of a missing it's kind of a missing thing in today's teaching. People, children and kids and families and parents, they want that instant gratification, and I understand that to a certain degree. You got to find a fine medium there, what works for each student. But I loved the idea of just this one drum, this one voice. I didn't understand it back then, but I totally get it now. You know what I'm saying? Like I totally understand why he did that. Um, and it made more sense, and it helped immensely, futuristically speaking.
Well, I mean, and to do so many different things musically that you're talking about here between 6 and 16 or whatever. You've got all the band and school and everything, and then this instructor, and then getting to jam with your dad to get all that experience and wrap that all up. Yeah, that's gonna form and shape a really great player there. You know.
Well, I'll say a good player. I don't know how, I don't
it's
know that I'll go great.
it's the foundation for a great drummer. How's that?
Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that and run with it. That's fine.
That's awesome. So you got in your band, you were in the cover band. You guys, I still can't believe you were doing tracks with an ADAT. That just
Yeah.
blows me away. But the whole thing with click tracks, some people watching may not be drummers. In case they don't know, it's basically like a metronome in your head that goes with the
Yep.
that locks you into the music. But being able to get that, I only had opportunities in the studio to play with a click when I would record original music because I was playing original music.
Sure.
At any point through this time period, were you doing any original music? It was it all cover music at the time?
You know, in the three-piece band that I was in, they had been writing some originals, and we had all the intentions of making it quote unquote big, or doing whatever, but it never really took off. The songs, I thought the songs were great, but life happens, and when two of the other players decide, I'm going to get married and I'm going to, pursue, certain things or ventures or whatever, that takes up that time for that. And for me, um, I think it was around that point where I just kind of, I was playing all the bars and all the clubs, and I was making actually pretty decent money doing it. 3 or 4 nights a week, just playing different clubs around Evansville, or maybe even one in Owensboro, Kentucky, which was just a stone's throw away from where I lived at the time. Um, but I can say that, like, you as a youngster, that you've just got this burning fire inside of you to always do something more. Like, it wasn't enough for me. It is for some people. It is enough for them, and that's I learned that lesson, that success can be in the music business, can be anything that you really kind of wrap around it. If it's learning a few cover songs and playing it in a bar on the weekends, that's success. Um, for me, I wanted so much more, and I knew it. I knew it in my heart. I knew that I didn't want to keep playing the same bars and clubs over and over and over and over and over again. I wanted to do something way bigger. And there was that point around 1996, 1997, that happened, that shift in me took place. And I had been talking about moving away from home, or getting away from home, that kind of thing. And I had met somebody at the time, which didn't pan out, but ended up, my choices at the time. I literally was like, do I go to LA? Or I've also just, I just did some things with a friend in Owensboro, Kentucky, that was in a country band, and he was moving to Nashville, and had invited me to move to Nashville to help pursue something with him. And I was like, well, I mean, if I move to LA, I got scared of LA. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, I just, like, man, if I go out there, I'm gonna get eaten alive.
I know, yeah, it is. That sounds like this massive move, and then there's also, the cost of living is so much higher, so you definitely got to be
Yeah,
making some money. And
yeah.
Nashville just seems to be a little bit more attainable.
It was,
Yeah.
and it was only, to me, it was like, okay, look, if I fail in LA, that's me trying to find a flight home, which is several hours away, or a bus ride or something. If I fail in Nashville, it's 2 hours away.
Close fail.
It's a closer fail,
Yeah, it's all
so
good.
it's all good. I mean, I could walk that,
Right,
whatever.
right, whatever.
Uh,
So funny.
So, it was, the choice was clear to me, and I was like, I'm gonna try this Nashville thing. And of course, those first couple of years in Nashville were just super fun, but super rough when it came to, like financially figuring it out. And again, that was a different time back then, and of course, Broadway, playing down on Broadway, and trying to make ends meet. And back then, they didn't have, you weren't getting paid anything but tips. And so you could play 4 hours doing cover songs and walk out of there with 10, $15.
Oh,
You know,
that's terrible. Gosh.
so that can
I
be,
mean,
and I'm
I can't imagine making that doing covers. I can definitely imagine that. Yeah, I mean, playing original music, we didn't, sometimes we had to pay to do that. But
right.
wow, not to get paid playing covers, that's rough, man.
Yeah, but so I tried to learn quick lessons, and figure it out along the way. But I was still just, to be brutally honest, I was still just a punk. Like, I was just a punk back then, and just trying to have fun. I was away from the family, away from the parents' guard and whatnot, and so this was like fun time, and I'm just going to do, whatever. And I lived it. You know what I'm saying? I lived all that stuff. And fortunately for me, I ended up in a band, which was an all original band, when I got to Nashville. And it was very much, gosh, I want to say, the band name was Peel. And
Like an
we,
onion.
like PE, was it PEAL or PEEL? I can't remember.
It's like
Gosh, it's been
peel.
years. I'm showing my age. Anyways, it doesn't matter.
It's all good.
But it was an all original thing, and it very much sounded like a Tool-esque kind of sounding band. And our rehearsal space was in Madison, Tennessee. There's a public storage in Madison that has these, like, 10 by 10, 12 by 12 rooms that are heated and air conditioned. And a lot of people were renting it out to put their belongings in. We rented it out as a rehearsal space.
Right. I knew a lot of people who did that. You're not really supposed to do that, but we do it anyway.
Yeah, well, luckily, I think the manager of that place really enjoyed
Oh,
the
that's
fact that
cool.
there were bands were
Yeah.
doing that. So there was about 5 or 6, maybe even 7 bands in that public storage doing that.
Wow.
And it was a lot of fun, man. Like you'd go into your party, kind of have a little bit of a party in your band room, and you're learning stuff and you're figuring things out, and then you go perform it for people and see where it goes. And that was a lot of fun. At the time, I was working it had just switched over from Thoroughbred Music to Sam Ash Music, so I was working at the music store in Rivergate and selling drumsticks, drum heads, you name it, all the stuff. I was the salesman, Sean, back then. And what was super cool about that job is, that's where I got to meet all the touring guys. That's where I got to meet all the touring drummers because, back then, I mean, there were endorsements for people, but it wasn't like what endorsements are now. You know what I'm saying? And so the drummers still had to go, even if they were with an artist that was touring, they may not have an endorsement for sticks or for cymbals or for heads, and so they'd come see me, and I'd sell them their stuff and try to give them a little bit of a discount if I could, and that's how I met several players that were doing, playing for the big acts.
No, I
Uh,
mean, working in a music store is a great place to network for sure.
oh yeah,
Smart.
1,000%,
Yeah,
thousand
surrounding yourself with music in every aspect of your life, and that'll get you in front of
exactly,
people. Yeah.
exactly. But and I'm gonna say his name. I'm gonna say his name on here, and he can deal with it whenever he hears it or if he hears this cast. But a good friend of mine, uh, who has been, I guess, playing drums now for Blake Shelton for several years. His name is Tracy Broussard, and Tracy um, is one of them, another just wonderful, amazing human being, family man now, but back then he wasn't with Blake Shelton. He was with a different artist, and I remember hanging out with him a couple times at the music store, and we'd talk shop a little bit here and there, and I'd sell him some things or whatever. But he came to me one time and asked me if I'd be interested in playing, fulfilling a couple of shows with this country artist um, named Shane Miner, and he was getting ready to leave and go to a different artist. And I thought, wow, this could be a little bit of a toe in the door. So I said, sure, I'll do it. And while we had that public storage place, I would, when I'm not rehearsing with my band, I was learning all these country songs for this artist that Tracy turned me on to, and so I did those couple of shows, which was super fun. Turns out that the guitar player from that group was also helping a country artist named Craig Morgan try to get his career back on track. And then he hired me to do a couple of like acoustic songwriter things, just doing some percussion for this artist. And I think maybe one drum set gig. It was 2 or 3 shows. That was it. But they were like Walmart shareholders meetings or something like that. And so I did those. And like it was just one of those cool things of like, wow, I'm finally seeing a little bit of light in the tunnel here. Um, and so I started doing those things, and again, like just the domino effect of being able to do those couple of things and have already a couple of people behind you go, yeah, this guy did a good job for the person that I turned him on to. It's a lot of it's word of mouth, just word of mouth and how you do and how you perform for somebody, and you start to quickly realize that it's a job. It's a fun job, but it's a job, and it's just like anything else. As an employee, you got to do your job, and you got to do it correctly. So um, it turned out really nicely. Fasting forward just a pinch from there, a good buddy of mine that also moved from Evansville, Indiana. Uh, his name was Brian Kolb. He was working at a studio down there on Music Row, and I remember him. He was the guy that would like. He was just kind of like during the day he was kind of a runner for the studio, but at nighttime they would let him use the studio because he was also interning to be a like a studio engineer. And so he would record a lot of demos late at night for like a quarter of the price for some of these songwriters, so they wouldn't get charged as much, at nighttime doing the nighttime thing than they would during the day at these studios.
Yeah, they're like, I'll take
Uh,
that.
yeah,
Right.
and he would hire me. He would hire me to come and play some drums on some stuff. Um, and it never paid a lot of money or anything like that. It was mainly like, to be honest with you, at that time, pizza and beer. But
Hey,
like,
priorities.
priorities, kept me fed.
Right.
And but the cool thing is like now I look back on that, and some of these songwriters that I got to record demos for are major songwriters. Dallas Davidson is a major songwriter. If you get a chance to look him up and look at his catalog of the songs that he's written and continues to write. Hillary Lindsay, another major songwriter in Nashville. But I got to play on some of these demos way back in the day and get to meet these folks. And you talk about, again, just another experience that, man, like I'm still kind of dumbfounded how all this stuff happened. But again, it just kind of led me to what the next steps were, which, to be honest with you, was the Luke Bryan experience. I was that same person that was running that studio was also, believe it or not, roommates with Luke Bryan,
It's
and
like, what?
and Luke was just songwriting for Murrah Publishing at the time, and I remember finishing up a session for my buddy Brian, and lo and behold, here comes Luke Bryan in the door. Of course, back then he's just a songwriter, and you know, uh, I guess he was on the phone complaining or upset about something, and my buddy Brian asked him what's up, and he said that his drummer had bailed on him for this weekend of shows. And of course, my buddy Brian's just like, well, my friend Sean here, he's a really good drummer, man. Maybe check him out or whatever. And at first, Luke was like, yeah, maybe, I don't know, or whatever. He goes, screw it, give me your phone number. So I gave him I gave him my phone number, and sure enough, he called me, and here we go. Now I'm playing for this artist all over Georgia, Milledgeville, Statesboro, Athens, you name it.
So you like jump in a tour bus or a van, or what was that experience
These were
like?
back then. I mean, again, he's just Luke Bryan.
Right,
So
right.
there was a lot of times where me and the bass player at the time was a guy named Mark Robichaux, and we would hop in his vehicle or we'd hop in mine or whatever, and we would drive to Georgia, and go do some shows with them over the weekend, then drive back, and then it finally became like a van situation and a trailer situation, and I mean, it just kind of went from there. But um, I don't know. I went through so many different changes at that particular time too. I still had the rock and roll bug biting me, and Luke had at that point just gotten signed by Capitol Records, and uh, you know I had to make a choice of, do I still attempt to do the rock thing, or do I just kind of take this road with this artist that just got signed, and see where it goes? And oddly enough, I chose to try the rock and roll route. And I thought to myself, well, look, if it fails, at least I won't have to look back, in time and go, what if?
Right, right.
And so, you know, uh, uh, and oddly, and it did fail. So it did fail, but and I ended up back up with Luke actually for a little while. Um, Coming out of that, they lost their drummer, and I was available, and so I came back and played with them for a little while. But I was still just a different person at that point. I think that and I was going through some life things at that point too, and I want to say, not to bring the mood down, but I think I went through a divorce at the time, and it was kind of a painful time for me, and obviously, like, when you're going through those kind of things, it's also you have to remember that you're still a part of a business, and that business can't move forward if it's affecting the business. And so I had to depart from that situation with Luke, and set back for a little while. Got through what I was going through, and then I got picked up by Justin Moore. Um, and that was an audition situation as well. And chime in on any of this, by the way, if you want to. I don't know if you all have questions or whatever. I'm just kind of rambling. So
I no, you're great, man. I do have a guy. This is from a little while back. I'll ask it real quick just to get it in here. But
sure.
he did want to know who your biggest drummer influence was when you were growing up. I know you named a lot of drummers, but it's
Yeah,
and I know Alex Van Halen was somebody you mentioned. Do you think he was at the top of the
yeah.
list?
I think that I think it's in stages.
Uh-huh.
Like if you're talking like the very early, like when I first started playing, um, I was getting bit by that rock bug, and things that were way different, that kind of struck a chord with me, believe it or not, man, was like maybe even goes as far back as a Peter Chris, from Kiss.
Yeah.
And because it was such a it wasn't I don't know, you take the massive kit and the makeup and the bombs and the things and all the stuff about Kiss. And that might have been the very first like wow moment for me, because it was kind of shocking at the same time. But then it quickly got into, obviously like the John Bonhams of the world, and then, gosh, the Neil Peart's big time. Neil Peart from Rush, massive. The first time I saw Exit Stage Left, I was just dumbfounded. I was like, I quit.
I know,
Yeah,
same, right?
I quit. You win
Yeah,
all the awards,
right.
and but and then like you fast forward a few years, and that's when like to me it was like the Bill Wards, or the, believe it or not, like the Frankie Benalis from Quiet Riot, or the Tommy Lees, Sib Hashian, who I didn't even know was his name at the time. I just loved Boston, but then to find out it was Sib was crazy for me. But yeah, I mean Alex Van Halen I mean, God bless, what a massive influence he was. Um,
And
and
I have to ask you. You brought Alex up earlier.
yeah.
I was wondering, did you read the book, Brothers?
You know what? I've not, with everything that's going on, I have not. Um, but I want to really
Yeah,
bad.
I
So
I was
much
I
so
was
badly.
like my biggest all time band or my favorite band growing up was Van Halen. I had it floor to ceiling and
Oh,
half the ceiling, just cutouts from magazines, posters, whatever I could get. It's hilarious. I'll have to send you a picture sometime. But so when I read that book, like you know, it felt like part of my childhood I was reading about, and to be able to get
yeah.
that backstory and learn about that they played with their dad and all this kind of stuff, and similar to
Oh,
what you were saying,
yeah.
really, really, really fantastic book. I feel and I mean it was just up to like 1984, so there wasn't really anything beyond that. But he might put out a second one. I hope he does. But I really loved it. I hope you get a chance to
Yeah.
read it sometime for sure.
I will, and to fully answer that question, like because there's so many different chapters of my life where something just struck a chord with me. One of I like to this date right now, one of my favorite go-tos, God bless, he's just, to me it wasn't so much about the flash, it was about the pocket, the groove, the feel, and the ghost notes and all the things that wrapped around this person. But it was, gosh dang it, oh, Jeff Porcaro, you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, yeah,
I
dude. I'm
love
like,
Jeff
I'm like,
Porcaro.
I hear him play, and I'm just like, how is he even making all that happen? You know what I mean?
I know.
So cool. Yeah, such a
But
groove.
I go again, all these chapters. I didn't learn about the Dave Weckels of the world,
Steve
the Vince
Smith.
Colaiutas, until much later. But again, just to kind of throw them in the mix, there's such a love and appreciation, and if I ever, there's times when I'm sitting on the bus in the bunk, and I want some kind of flavor to hit me, and it might not be Alex Van Halen that night. It might be a Toto thing, or something that Jeff Porcaro played on the studio. It might be a Bonham thing. Quite honestly, I could be excited one night and want to listen to some Motley Crue and some Tommy Lee. So it just depends. It's such an emotion, and I think that's the one thing that I love the most about music, is any emotion that you're looking to fulfill, you can musically. It's insane. Like just from being sad to glad to happy to just excited
Right.
to whatever it is, there's a band to fit your emotion. There's a music to fit it.
Right.
Uh,
I think I saw something that said something like where words fail that there's music or something like that. Like
Absolutely.
you're able to show every emotion through music. It's pretty incredible.
It is. It
Yeah.
is.
I have another question for you here.
Go for it.
This is from Lori. She says, "What's your favorite studio performance slash artist you've ever played for?"
Oh my gosh.
These are hard because I bet you. I mean, what a great problem to have. I'm just saying.
You know what? I'll say this. The most fun, uh, believe it or not, was more recent. Um, the song "Blinding Lights" by The Weeknd. You know that song, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, um, this past year, at a random point, Tyler Hubbard, the artist that I play for, you all know him as Tyler Hubbard, or the voice, if you will, of Florida Georgia Line. But um, he uh, he invited his band. We were asked to do this makeshift studio thing. Well, not so much makeshift. It was in a studio, but it was like we want you to re-envision one of the songs on your album, Tyler's album. So we re-envisioned. What that means is like take a song that's on the album and completely make it different. Okay, like a different emotion to it, like a completely different style. And so we did that to one of Tyler's songs from his album. And then we were also asked to do that to a cover song.
I
And
I love this kind of stuff. By the way, I just have to say because like taking something and reworking it. Like Vanilla Fudge did a lot of that.
yes,
So
absolutely.
cool.
It's such a cool thing. And
Yeah.
and well, a lot of bands got to do that back in the MTV days when they did the unplugged versions of their songs.
Oh, right,
Um,
right.
which I thoroughly enjoyed that.
Yeah.
But so we did Blinding Lights by The Weeknd. And I want to say you can find it on iTunes and but I get a chance, go find it and listen to it. That's a couple of the songs that we did in a studio just randomly. And it was so much fun to just kind of like, oh wow, that's cool to re-envision it and make it feel completely different, or to take a cover song that is a different genre and kind of Tyler Hubbard it up a little bit, you know what I'm saying, or FGL it up a little bit, whatever you want to say to it. We kind of just rocked it up a bit, if you will. Kind of made it more of a rock song. But yeah, like go check that stuff out. That was super fun. And gosh, man, I hope to get more of those opportunities. That'd be a lot of fun.
No doubt. There's a guy out on the YouTube world. I just forgot his name, but he did a rework of Africa by Toto.
Oh wow, yeah.
But like totally different, like heavy. And
Okay.
it's actually, and he has a woman singing on it.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. I freaking love it. I mean, there's parts of it I don't like, but it's very cool. I'll have to send it to you. I think you would dig it, and totally.
Well, there's one thing that I see him on Instagram every once in a while do it, but the longer haired, I think I want to say he's like a metal guitar player, but he will take a song and do it in the style of a different band. And gosh, he would take
Oh,
oh,
I've seen a guy do
you
that
know what I'm
too.
talking about. He would
Yeah.
take a pop song and
Uh,
do it in the style of like Alice in Chains or
right,
something.
right. Yeah, I've seen that too. It's so cool, man. Living in the world we're in right now, where there's so much creativity that is again at your fingertips. Like you just start surfing around on YouTube and you'll run across everything, and to be able to see people just be creative like that, it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. And of course, I mean, for me, like, gosh, I found like over the last couple of years, and I know some of you that are my age or maybe a little younger can attest to this, but like, you get to a point in your musical history of listening to music where you kind of just like what you like, and you don't dare stray from it, and you just keep listening to the same Pink Floyd album or the same, whatever, which no flat marks on Pink Floyd. I'm a big Pink Floyd fan, but Um, I would say that like, and I fell into that category over the last couple years where you're just really kind of, I don't know, you hear a lot of stuff, but you're just not impressed by it, or it's the same kind of rehash of this, or it sounds like this, or whatever. And I, luckily for me, there's randomly always somebody that'll come up and go, they'll introduce themselves, or we'll talk, and hey man, have you ever heard of this band? And I'm like, no, I've never heard of that band at all. I can and they'll know some of my influences or some of the bands that I really love or whatever, and they'll say, man, if you love Tool, you'll love this band. And so and I'll go check it out. And sometimes I really enjoy it, and sometimes it's like, whatever. But there's been a couple of bands, one in particular that came to my mind here recently that I'm just like, my God, I'm blown away by everything that they do, and I don't know how to explain it. And I don't even know if a lot of you have out there have even heard of it. I know that they're doing a lot of stuff on Instagram now, but and I want to say, gosh, are they from? I forget where they're from. They're overseas though, but it's a band called Leprous. You ever heard of them?
No, I haven't heard of that one.
Holy cow! You need to turn yourself on to Leprous. Leprous.
I'm
Um,
making a note of it like right now.
their drummer, I want to say it's Bard Kolstad. Baard, Bard Kolstad, Kolstad, I believe. Incredible, just an incredible like, and the singer is phenomenal. He's very operatic. It's kind of Tool meets Perfect Circle meets something, and I can't put my thumb on it. But it's just got this. I don't know. Some songs are very laid back. Some are just very progressive, and um, I don't know. It's worth a listen if you get a chance. Go get some of their albums. They've got several albums out, but and each one of them have gotten to me progressively better. But
It's so
uh,
cool.
such a cool thing. But
So,
that's a band that I'm kind of hooked on right now. There for the longest time, it was 30 Seconds to Mars, and
yeah,
then for quite some time it was Muse. So
that's awesome. That's so cool. Well, I know we have another topic we want to get to tonight, but I want to make sure to just touch on how you ended up with Florida Georgia line.
So, okay, well, I was kind of in the midst of that story, ended up with Justin Moore for quite some time, 4 or 5 years. And that was a learning experience, very more Southern rock edged kind of deal, which I was actually kind of used to, which is fine. But throughout the course of these years, music and country music, or however you want to describe country music or music in general, the lines have been blurred so much, because people are going from one genre to the other, and kind of writing together and forming these concoctions that are amazing. But to me, it's still country music, still has an edge to it. But all that stuff kind of started back in the day with like Shania Twain and Garth Brooks. But I would say that after the Justin Moore experience, man, I'll be honest with you. I went through like a little phase area where I kind of questioned if I still wanted to play. I was kind of like, I don't know. I don't want to use the word jaded, but at the same time, I was just kind of exhausted of what I was feeling and seeing and things of that nature. And so I took some time away, um, and got a phone call, oddly enough, from the manager at the time of Florida Georgia Line, and I had never heard of Florida Georgia. I'd never heard the name before, and asked if I wanted to audition for this group. Um, and I turned this is fun. I turned the audition down. Um, I turned the audition down initially. Um, Again, the first thing that went through my head, some of you'll get a kick out of this. The first thing that went through my head was like, who calls their band Florida Georgia Line? And so, I was kind of like, I don't, that's probably not going to go anywhere. And so I just kind of, I shut down the audition portion of it. And luckily for me at the time, uh, as soon as I hung that phone up after doing that, my wife and a friend, one of her girlfriends that was staying at our house, she had just moved to Nashville at the time, so she was staying in one of our rooms of the house. She knew way more about this band called Florida Georgia Line than I did, of course. And I hung up the phone, and they asked me who that was. I was like, it was the manager for some band wanted me to audition. I just turned it down. And they're like, "What was the name of the band?" And I said, "It was Florida Georgia Line or something like that." And both of them were just like, "You're an idiot. You you need to call them back right now."
Oh my gosh.
Um, and so they, I had no idea. I had never heard the song Cruise. I had never heard of the band. I knew nothing about them. Um, and they're like, "Well, this band that you just like turned down is about to explode, and you don't even know it." Um, and so I called him back immediately, and I was like, "You know what? I kind of changed my mind. Just send me a I kind of played it off. I was like, send me a couple of the songs, and I'll learn them, and I'll come, play, and we'll just kind of see where it goes." And they're like, "Okay, cool." So I kind of
A
played it
little
off,
nice.
played it off a little bit,
Yeah.
and so they sent me. It was weird. It was kind of it was there was a little bit of confusion. The band leader at the time sent me like two or three songs to audition to, and then the manager sent me two or three songs to audition to, and then somebody else sent me a couple of songs to audition to. So rough, I had like seven or eight songs that I'm just like, well, screw it. I'll just learn them all. So I learned all the songs. I went to the audition and played the first couple of songs that they wanted me to play, and they're like, okay, that sounds good. And I was like, well, I've got six or seven more here that I could play for you because you guys sent me like so many songs. And they're like, what? And so all of a sudden the confusion came together and everybody's like, okay, well, let's just listen to them. So I played down about, like I said, six or seven songs. And they at that point, it's there's nothing like having you're sitting at your drums and you're playing to these songs and the band's playing, and sitting on the couch like 10 feet from the stage of where you're playing is the producer, the manager, BK, Tyler, and I forget who else was there, but they're all just sitting on a couch basically kind of staring at you
Oh
like
God, that's terrible, man.
no,
That's
they're just
rough.
kind of like it's almost like they're contemplating,
Right.
stuff.
You're like
You
in
just
front of a
don't know.
panel or
Eh,
something.
yeah,
Yeah.
oh, this is the voice, but no,
Right.
but yeah, I was waiting for a chair to turn around, but
Somebody hit a
what,
button or something.
but it was a couch. But anyway, so oddly enough, I get done, and they're like, "Let's go to eat breakfast," and I was like, "Okay." So we got up, I left with them, and we went to a breakfast, and we sat down and we talked for a while, and uh, and that was it. I want to say they said you've got the gig. And I was like, "So there's nobody else auditioning?" He's like, "No, you were the only one that we auditioned."
Oh wow, what a trip.
And and I didn't find this out until later.
Uh-huh.
Uh, because oddly enough, as soon as we went on the road, my roommate on the road, which means the person that I'm kind of stationed with in hotel rooms was Tyler. Tyler Hubbard. And so it was me and him in a room, and he kind of laid it out for me. Um, the last few shows that I did with Justin Moore, we were on this tour, part of it called the CMT Throwdown Tour. And Gary Allen was the headliner, and we were the main support for like six or seven shows. Not a bunch, just a handful. Turns out that earlier in the day was a B stage, somewhere out in the field because these were all like outdoor venues. There was a B stage out in the distance, and on that stage were bands like Florida Georgia Line, Parmalee, Maggie Rose, a couple. I want to say a couple more that I can't remember off the top of my head, so I apologize. Um, but I didn't know that. I knew none of these bands. You know what I'm saying? I just was playing with Justin at the time, and so we would play that night. And it turns out that Tyler and BK would come watch me play with Justin during our set. And basically, they knew at that particular time, they had their drummer. He was a great drummer. He's still a great drummer. I want to say he's still playing right now and doing a wonderful job. But they wanted something a little different in the band, and that's just the nature of the beast of this business. Sometimes it's not what you've done or done wrong. It's just there's something different that people want. They want that hand in glove fit.
Or
And
yeah, it
some
could be like even just the chemistry, it just
Yeah,
depends. Yeah.
absolutely. It's just a chemistry thing. And so it's not so much the playing as it is something completely different. But with Justin, I was also that kind of ball of fire of energy up there for him. To me it was all, I had grown up watching all these flashy bands and the drummers just he's laying into it and he's twirling sticks or he's doing whatever, he's putting on a little bit of a show. And it's just part of the act to me. And I kind of took that and ran with it into the country market. I was like, that's what this needs, because I remember going to country shows and just being like, the music sounds great, but the band is boring, or not boring so much as it looks boring. The look of it looks boring. It was almost like the star was out front with the spotlight and the band was just kind of in the back,
Right,
in
right.
the
Yep.
shadows kind of
Hmm.
thing. And to me, it was like, man, there needs, and I want to say that Rich is probably the exact same way with this. Like there has to be this thing where, there's a bit more of what I like to call eye candy on stage. That's not to say that I'm good looking. I am ugly, but
Stop. Yeah, but
I'm just
some energy and
there,
enthusiasm on the
yeah,
stage, right?
there's something else on stage for you
Yeah,
to look at than just the artist. And I think that that's what Tyler and them recognize is like, we want this thing on stage that is larger than life. You know what I'm saying? Like absolutely larger than life. Like we want to be the opener for acts, and the main acts wish that they weren't on that stage with us. That was like, it was a goal of ours to completely lay waste to whatever was happening on that stage to where nobody wanted to follow us.
that's awesome. That's great.
And so that was the goal,
Yeah.
and whether it was with the songs or the way we played the songs or the energy that we put behind the songs, within 6 to 8 months of us being the 25-minute opening slot for two or three acts, we were now the main act with a full album, with one album headlining. And all these other acts that have maybe two albums or three albums that but only have maybe like one hit or something like that were opening for us. And it was so interesting to watch this thing go from like this shuttle van and a trailer to 6 to 8 months later, when you were driving that shuttle, because we would take turns driving the shuttle vans to these places. Everywhere we would go, we would take turns. And all of a sudden now here's a bus and a trailer. Now, 2 months later, here's three buses and two trailers.
Man, how cool
And
is that to just
and then
progress in that way?
exactly. And then immediately after that, the following year was two semis. And it's just
Wow.
and then it just escalated, and this thing was just a wildfire. Um, but we loved it. Like we would watch, it was so fun to watch. Like we would stand behind our stage. Like I remember playing a couple of places that maybe held like 5 or 6 thousand, maybe 7,000 people. And it was an outdoor event, like one of those outdoor stage kind of things. And I remember um, us always wanting to be like just backstage where we can peek out over the crowd when they would open the doors to let people in. And it was a monstrosity. It was like people were like, it was like Beatle-esque. It was weird. Like people would
Wow.
just, it was like
Just
a
like,
cattle,
yeah, like
just
stampede in, just
they would stampede in, and you're just like, oh my God, like that. And to this day, like I I never really put it so much into my head how massive that first and second album were, but just completely massive. And it literally is a storyline and a book for some people's lives. Um, I don't know. And then you get to a certain point where all that success is there. Now you're on your third or fourth album. And then that's when you get the haters. You get the ones that are, oh, we're so over this, and they make a name for it called bro country, or whatever they want to call it.
right. Yeah, read about that.
Whatever they want to call it.
Yeah.
Um, it was a weird time to see it go from such a massive thing, to see it um I don't know, level off, and then just kind of you start to see like these acts that were opening for you now to start to like really take off, like the Morgan Wallens of the world or the Hardys of the world. Um, these are acts that were opening acts for us, or songwriters out on the road with us whenever we were huge. And I remember the tour with Dan and Shay, when Dan and Shay just went massive, and they were opening for us on one of our tours, and they had no reason to do that. They had no reason opening for us. They could have filled stadiums on their own. It's just it was such a good time though. Like I wouldn't trade it for the world. Those were
Oh yeah.
10 years of just pure like fun and like so many cool things came of that. So many fun times, so many wonderful people, and just the amount of people that I've met through that that stint of 10 years with that, it was incredible. And I wouldn't trade it for the world.
That's so cool, man. And now I know that you started doing some shows with Tyler just as a solo artist. Is that still that's on hold kind of right now? Or is he still performing?
Oh no, no, he's been going strong.
Yeah.
We did 95 shows this past year.
Oh, wow.
95. And here's the thing. You know, it's a different feel now, okay? It's not that rocket that takes off. It's a slow, steady, let's just see where this goes kind of thing. And and the music business changes every year. Just the different ways that people view it, different ways they listen to it, the different uh, genres doing this or whatever. Like music is always going to change and it's always going to change drastically in certain areas. But, as a solo artist right now, he has three number ones, you know, as
So
a
amazing.
solo
Yeah.
artist. And it's just, it's incredible to see, like, it's incredible to see somebody like Tyler really just kind of like come out of something that was so massive and go, I haven't had enough. I still have a lot of gas in the tank. I still have a lot of words I want to say. I still have a lot of music that I want to produce, a lot of songwriters that I want to write with, a lot of things that I want to do, and I'm not going to stop because this train stopped. I'm going to be the engine of the new train, and I'm going to take this off. And he did that. When the whole FGL thing ended, he gave me a call. It was during the COVID time, towards the latter part of the COVID time, because, bless him and BK for doing this, but during COVID, they kept us all on salary during that time and really took care of all of us through a lot of that time, and they
What a
didn't have
blessing. Yeah. Yeah.
not have to do that. There's a lot of artists that didn't do that, but there's a lot of artists that did, and what a wonderful way to show your gratitude and your love and appreciation to the musicians that come out with you to do something like that. But I do remember that, the day when when that couldn't happen anymore, but he called me personally and he said, "Look, I've got some terrible news. I have to do two things. I have to pull you off a salary and I have to let you go from the FGL thing." And I remember what that felt like, and I remember what I was doing at the time. I was doing carpentry work for a buddy of mine because nobody was touring, and so I had to find different avenues to make money and to do different things. And carpentry was, something that kind of was. I don't know. I can't say that I'm sitting like I'm like this best carpenter in the world. I'm not, but I literally just did carpentry work and learned a lot about woodworking and things of like that nature through a friend of mine that lives close to me here in Tennessee. And I remember him telling me, he goes, "Look, though," he goes, "I have to do this." He goes, "But I also want to let you know that I'm working on something. I'm working on something that's just me." And he goes, when I get it close enough to being done or to be where I can just pull you back in," he goes, if you're not busy, he goes, "you can always go do whatever you need to do." He goes, he goes, "But I would love to invite you back to be my drummer when that happens." And I was like, "Man, you know what? Like, yeah, let me know. Keep me posted." I was upset at the time, and who wouldn't be, but I wasn't upset at him. I was upset at the situation. I was upset at the avenue of things that happened, towards the end of the FGL experience. And um, what a powerhouse of a group that was, and so much fun, and 20 number ones. I mean, you can't sniff at that, 20 number ones as a band,
It's
or as a
nuts.
group,
Yeah.
duo is
Yeah.
is insane. Um, and so, to see him doing what he's doing right now he's literally like writing his own script. He's literally blazing his own trail, and I love that about him. So he has done so many wonderful things for me individually, and then for my family as a whole. Um, not to fast forward too much into what we were getting ready to talk to about with Cora and whatnot, but when that happened, you know, Tyler and Haley, his wife, were one of the first ones to visit us at the hospital. They were, he was, called me one day and said, look, you know, because this was at the beginning of the year and he was getting ready to start touring, and it was going to be a busy year. And he's like, look, I can't stop touring for this. He goes, but I want to offer you something. And, out of the goodness of his heart and out of the goodness of his family's heart, he said, look, why don't you take the year off? He goes, look, just let me just take the year off. Let's, you know, kind of wrap our minds around what's happening. He goes, I still want to pay you salary. I want to keep you on salary. I want to pay your salary. I just want you to not tour and just focus on this.
Man, that's so
And
awesome.
which is amazing.
Yeah.
You don't I'm not saying there's not artists out there that don't do that, but like it's got to be few and far between. Um, and so, there's such an appreciation that I have for him for even offering that. Now, I will tell you, obviously, I toured. I took 1 month off. I did take a month off, and we had a buddy of the band's fill in, named Spence, and he did an amazing job, did a great job, holding down the fort for me while I was, gone for that month and going through what we were going through. But during the course of that time, me and my wife Katie had a conversation about this whole thing and the offer that was offered to us, and we both kind of came down to an agreement of like, look, if I take this year off, I don't know, what the future holds for that. I don't know if I come back from that, you know. Um, and she agreed with me. What we did do is we decided to have a B plan with Tyler and the group, which we did, which nobody basically knew about until this very moment, which was, we were getting ready to start the Kane Brown tour. And so essentially what we did was we had recordings of the rehearsals that we had for the show, and what we did was we gave both the very opening act, which is the band Parmley. Scott is their drummer, so I want to. I truly believe this happened. Anyways, I'm not 1,000% sure, but I think this is what happened. Is they gave those rehearsal um, tapes and whatnot to both Scott from Parmley and then Kane Brown's drummer as well. And so essentially they had those in their back pocket in case, something were to happen while I was out on the road and they had to fly me home real quick. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, totally. That I can't. That's a really brilliant idea too.
Yes,
Utilizing someone who's going to be there.
exactly. So at any moment, if something were to happen, one of those two drummers could fill the spot and get us through some shows until I came
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
Which was an amazing thing, and not, that never came to pass. That never happened, by the way. Luckily for us, we have just a wonderful family and Katie's family and wonderful family and friends and ours and just the acquaintances, our neighbors, our community around White House and Cross Plains, Tennessee have just been outstanding. And then our extended family that goes all over the US. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, from just past experience and all the people, the Tories of the world and the Sarahs and all of the people that have just, you know, either sent something, done something, said something, prayed for us, whatever it was. This all of this started happening immediately. And what a amazing feeling that was to have such a to see again, like going back in time, looking at this, I still to this day feel like, you know, as a believer, God was preparing this moment with all these people wrapped around us. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
it was all in preparation.
And it's so cool, because this is something we talked about earlier today. And I've had, similar experiences like that. I want to make sure we do get to tell Cora's story, but
Yeah.
I do agree with you. When I went through breast cancer, I hadn't, for years, I hadn't been going to church. And I think it was 2 or 3 years before I got breast cancer, I found a church that I really liked and I started going. And
Yeah.
so I was going to church through all my treatments and everything. And as soon as I finished my treatments, a year later, the church disbanded.
Yeah.
And I was just like, it just feels like it was just placed right there. So I totally feel that, man.
All about chapters in your life, every bit
Yeah,
of it.
totally. Yeah. I want you to if you're comfortable sharing about, what's going on with your daughter, I'd love folks to hear what's going on.
Yes. So the beginning of the year, Cora is our 5-year-old, and she got diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia, ALL. And it's there's good and bad news in that. The good news is that that's the one of the most what do they call it? That's the one that they deal with the most is ALL, okay, acute lymphoblastic leukemia. The problem with it was, or the downside of that was, is there's even with that diagnosis, there's different levels of extremity that comes along with that. It could be mild or it could be extreme. Um, for Cora, it was in the upper echelon of extremities, which is very unfortunate. And essentially, what that was told to us at the time was, is that means that, which is not good news that you want to hear, is that we could go through this whole thing of cancer treatments and, the chemo and the radiation, all the stuff that comes along with it, and it could come back. There's always this slight chance that it could come back. And, that was early on that we were told that,
It's
um,
terrifying.
which is terrifying.
Yeah.
Like you can go through every bit, which, my God, like you know, I don't even want to share like the horrific stuff that I have that as a father and as a mother we were seeing with our child through the just in the hospital scenes, like, what we share on social media is like when she's smiling, when she's having a good day, or, and that those kind of things. But, what doesn't get shared a lot of times, and what you probably, hear about on social media when my wife has just kind of had enough, or when I've had enough, is you'll hear us say something. We won't necessarily go into the deep dark secret of what transpired, but you can tell sometimes when we're posting stuff of what emotion we're feeling or where we're at in our heads at that particular time, and it's usually when something bad happens. And so, there's been a lot of ups and downs with this. There's been really good points, and then there's been a lot of stuff that you're questioning, my God, why my child? Why? Like, oddly enough, um, my 10-year-old, who is a wonderful, wonderful figure skater, she skates for the Scott Hamilton group here in Nashville. And just before this happened, we had just my 10-year-old had just gotten uh, this really cool thing. Every year, Scott does this benefit over at Bridgestone Arena, where they raise money and awareness for cancer. And my 10-year-old got to go out there and ice skate at the Bridgestone Arena in front of all these people with their group and whatnot. And it was a wonderful thing. It was for cancer. It was for cancer research, and they were raising money for it. And I remember doing that the first time, and it was just me and Cora sitting in one of the seats because my wife had to be backstage with her. And I remember thinking to myself, because there were so many people in that audience who had had cancer or dealt with cancer or had a family member that dealt with cancer. I had never had that. And so, like, to me, in my mind, I'm like going, man, I'm just glad I don't have to deal with this. And lo and behold, it wasn't but what, a month and a half later, we find out that she has ALL. Like, and I'm just again, like, trying to tie all this stuff together of like, you got to be kidding me. Not in a million years would you have been able to tell me that this would have ran through my family, but it is, and it's horrifying. It's got, it literally can tear you apart emotionally, and it has definitely flipped the script on me and my wife. It's definitely done some, we've been through every gamut of emotion, from anger to fear to anxiety to depression to everything. Like, it has flipped our script. I told Katie, I remember one night, driving home late at night from downtown. I was playing with some friends, and they were in the hospital. And I remember absolutely at the top of my lungs just screaming in my truck at like 12 o'clock at night driving down the highway, just like I not understanding why this could happen to my child, just screaming at God and whatever, like, how could you let this happen? And you know, when I remember doing that, and then I remember feeling just absolutely horrible the next day. I remember, saying a prayer and apologizing about it. And I remember after that, things got a bit better. I remember some things just lined up. I can't go through every story that happened, but there were so many moments, and I've posted about it, and Katie's posted about it. We call them God winks, just these little things that happen that you have to understand, like it's not coincidence. That's just God letting you know he's there. You know what I'm saying? Like, I
Yeah.
got this.
Yeah.
Wonderful thing.
It is. It is. Man, it's such a tough time. I mean, it's one thing to have, a family member that's an adult going through some form of cancer, but to have your little girl that's just like, yeah, it's like your worst nightmare. I was reading something
Yes.
today, Shauna. I just have to tell you, I'm sure you've heard of the book Jesus Calling.
Yes. Yep.
And I read
Got
something today.
it.
Yeah, I read something today, and it was talking about anxiety, but I think it goes for fear or anger and all that. And it says, just to throw all that as far away from you as possible, and that He'll take it.
Oh yeah.
And I
Absolutely.
that's what I envisioned when you were talking about screaming in your truck and all that is that He was just over there going, come on, give it to
Yep.
me. It's all good. Just give it to me.
Yep.
And it's sometimes extremely hard to um be in that moment and still find a way to be thankful,
It,
or
yes. It is. And I have, as the dad, my me and my wife we're very yin and yang. We're very different. My wife wears her heart on her sleeve, and I'm just that thick-skinned old grumpy guy that that hides his emotion internally, and I try to hide things through comedy, or I'm trying to be goofy or something like that, usually because I'm trying to, I'm absorbing something inside that maybe that I'm just not good at letting out, because I just I have trust issues, whatever that is. But I do feel like, through the process of this year, it's been amazing. The amount of people that have literally shown up and been there for us through thick and thin is just been amazing. And I'll throw this out there to all of you guys now. It has not been announced, and I think I had mentioned this, to you earlier, about something that's happening,
yeah.
here really soon. One of the persons that I didn't mention earlier, and I didn't mention him till now because I didn't want to throw it out, too soon. One of the persons that I really enjoyed watching growing up as a young drummer, and oddly enough, many years later, we are now, literally best of friends. Some of you may remember the band Tesla. Do you remember the band Tesla?
Oh my God, we're having a full circle moment right now because Troy was the first first
Yes.
celebrity to play at one of our breast cancer consecutive events, and
So you
just
see where
yeah, you're gonna make me. I'm gonna like cry like it's Barbara Walters all over again right here. Oh my God,
so
that's
Troy
insane.
Lucetta,
That's so
yeah,
cool, man. Oh my God.
Troy Lucetta is legitimately one of my best friends, and I can't I could spend another hour or two telling you stories of things that, like, how we've just come together, not just through drumming, but just in Christ. And he is very passionate person, both spiritually and just individually. But Troy called me. I want to say it's probably been a little over a month now ago, and asked me, because we had conversations. Me and Katie were talking about the financial portion of what we're dealing with, through this is going to be absolutely insane. And that's a story within itself that I just don't even want to go into. But just to say that, like, it's going to be insane. And so Troy called, and me and Katie had already discussed possibly doing some kind of charity. Some of you may have noticed me auctioning off some logo heads and things like that. Some of you actually bought. Sarah, thank you. All of you out there that took part in that was amazing. But May 1st, just put it on your calendar. May 1st, this is going to happen. I don't know all the ins and outs about it. Just put it on your calendar, and I'm sure at some point I will be putting it out to everybody via social media or whatever. May 1st, Troy Lucetta is putting on a charity auction here in Nashville. And it's going to be at the City Winery here in Nashville. We are going to have some special guests showing up to perform acoustically, things of that nature. I won't divulge right now who those are, but I'm sure one of you can guess who one of those are. But
So
uh,
awesome. Yeah.
yeah, but there's going to be some acoustic songwriter performances, things of that nature, and then there's going to be a silent auction, which I want to say they're trying to figure out how they can do this both from in person there at the City Winery in Nashville, as well as through possibly some
Uh,
sort of some sort like online
yeah,
kind of
we should, me and Troy should talk separately because we do those kinds of things all the time.
okay.
We do it in person, and then we have QR codes you scan, and or if you're out on the magical interwebs, you can be bidding that way too. So maybe I can chat with him and tell him what we've done in the past. I'm still just blown away. I mean, I'm 100% not surprised at all that Troy is doing that because that guy he's a godsend.
That's it.
He's been such an inspiration to me, and helped us in so many ways, and that is just the coolest news ever, Sean. I'm so happy. I need to tell you guys out there too, if you haven't noticed it, earlier when we started talking, I did pin a link, and it's a GoFundMe page for Cora. So please check that out. I hope you guys saw that. I definitely want y'all to see that. And May 1st at the winery there, you said?
Yep, City Winery
City
in
Winery.
Nashville, and we'll put all the information out there for everybody. I don't know all the ins and outs about it. Again, this is Troy's thing. He's like, oh, he goes, I want to do this. He wants to take it on. He has taken it on headstrong, and I'm just, I'm in awe by him and just what he does. And but he, just in true Troy fashion, he's not going to take credit for this, and I love that about him too. Such a humble human being,
Yeah.
which makes him love him even more
Yeah.
than what I did when I was just watching him as a young drummer, watching him play with Tesla. So, but I will tell you that an amazing person. This is going to be super fun, and all of this is going. We don't know, like we already know where this bill is that we're about to face, or not even about to face. It's going to be a while. This is something that Core is going to deal with for years to come. And we don't, the financial portion of it, I told Katie, I was like, look, and to me, I'm not worried about it. God's got this. And I've just seen absolute once, and kind of like what you said, once I turned it all over to God and I just said, look, I can't do this. This is on you. I'm dropping this at your feet. I'm walking away, and I'm just going to sit and watch from afar, and it has been nothing but just so much coolness come from this thing, and just watching it come together, and all I've got to do is just get out of his way. That's it.
That's right. That's right, man. And but getting to that point can be really difficult. And I'm so glad that you feel like you're there. Can you tell us, Sean, like, where are we at right now with Cora as far as her health? How's she doing?
Yes, so she is finishing up. She's like, is it 5 or 6 days, maybe 7 days away from finishing up a round of chemo called Blena. It's short. That's a short name for something else, but essentially, she has been accessed for the last several days. She has to be accessed for like a full month, and essentially what it is she wears this backpack, and this tube runs from her port in her chest into the backpack, and it gives her this slow drip of this Blena chemo. And what this chemo is it's a form of chemo that is kind of, I call it educated chemo. It essentially doesn't eradicate everything like normal chemo does. It kind of is specifically designed to go after just leukemia cells, which is letting her other cells grow. Which is incredible. I wish I'm not a doctor. I look at this stuff and I'm just like, gosh, I'm so uneducated.
It's
But
so
uh,
targeted. That's so incredible. You're right. It's incredible because normal chemo affects all these other cells, your digestive system, your skin,
yep,
your fingernails,
all of it.
everything. Yeah, and to be able to target, that's so good. Your white blood cells is a big problem with the chemo, and that's so good, man.
She's been through all the other forms of chemo. I wanna say this Blena, chemo, there was a lot of red tape that was wrapped around it, and I wanna say it was introduced as an availability for her age group more than most recently, so it wasn't even something that was offered at the beginning, you know? And so we're dealing with that, and then to me, the hardest part, which I rode the fence on this, but it's almost like we're kind of already the train's already headed towards the station. I can't jump off the train at this point, not knowing what could happen because I can't gamble on my kid's life. But she has the radiation that's going to happen towards the end of February, first of March here, and it's like 7 days of a lower dosage is what they're telling us. It's a lower dosage of radiation, which sounds better than a full dosage, but at the same time, we have been warned that it wouldn't keep her from going to college years from now, but it could definitely affect her learning abilities because the chemo is going to be more up towards the head area, the area that they can't see through MRIs and CT scans and stuff like that. And so that's, where they originally found it was behind her eye,
Oh,
which is a
wow.
weird place to
Random.
find it,
Yeah.
but that's where they found it. And so to them, that radiation at that portion of the body is where they kind of have to make sure that all of this is basically just to make sure they have done everything that they possibly can do to make sure it doesn't come back.
Right.
That's the hope and the prayer.
Yeah. Yeah. That's all of our prayers, all of us watching right now. I mean, wow, man. What a tough kid, man. I know she's got to be just amazing.
She is an incredible. I tell you right now, like I pity the person she dates later in life. I really do. She is going to be one tough cookie. And you know what? Like I'm a stronger person because of her. I know my wife is a better person. We are all better people, and think more responsibility. And we've done so many things of going down the rabbit holes of trying to figure out how we could be healthier for her, and so we do those things, and as parents, you try to do anything and everything in your power to be better for your kids, and that's where we're at with this, and for us, we'll continue to do that, and it's been amazing to watch her. you know she'll have her bad days, where like today, apparently when she went to clinic today, she had a bad day. She didn't want to be reaccessed, and she was fighting and screaming about that. But then when she gets home, she just hops on the couch and she's smiling and she's laughing and she's like, "Hey, Dad," and she's giving me hugs and loves, and then she tells me about it. I was like that because I asked her about her day, and she said it wasn't so good. So, but at 5 year old, trying to like she's just there's this intelligence of how she speaks as a 5 year old. Like she's had to grow up. Both her and McKenna at 10 year old has had to grow up so much in a short amount of time at their age, where they should be just outside playing and having
Right.
fun,
Right.
and but they're not allowed to do. They can't do that because of what it could mean, what it could bring in, and
Yep.
it's so hard. It's hard on them. It's hard on us. Um, Music is still, for me, it's an outlet. It's a way to get what I like to call like a mini vacation from what is happening there, to where I can get my aggressions out, but at the same time, like regain some focus, maybe a little bit of energy for when I come back home. And so that's what drumming means to me. That's what music means to me. And one thing that anybody out there that ever comes to watch me play will know about me is, no matter what I'm going through, no matter what problems, exist, um, I leave them at the edge of the stage, and I go up on that stage and I try to give everybody 150% of everything that I've got, because, you know, no matter what I'm going through, there's a lot of people in the world that are going through worse. There's somebody who has it worse. And I don't want to cheat them people out of what they paid for their mini vacation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. I have to be sure and read this message. Michael Fugate says, I had the pleasure of meeting and working a little bit with Sean in the early 2000s. He was always not just a great drummer, but always genuine.
Oh, I
Let him
appreciate that.
know that Mike and Belinda Fugate, that were there when the band that starts with a V are praying for his daughter Cora, and sending
Oh,
their
yeah.
love. So they're
I
sending you
s
love and prayers.
they're wonderful people. That is a band that I failed to mention during the whole portion of there was a band that was in Jackson, Tennessee that I played in for a while, and, that was between the stints of the Luke Bryan thing that I was doing, but, and that was a wonderful time too. That was a band that I was, hopeful would go somewhere, and, but it didn't. But, it is what it is. It was still a lot of fun, and we did a lot of wonderful things and met a lot of wonderful people that were part of that season of our lives, and some of them still are a part of our lives in some way, shape, or form, and I'm thankful for every one of them.
That's so cool. And Tori says to please keep us posted on the May 1st event. There's a lot of
Absolutely.
people commenting about that and excited about that news too.
It's gonna be
Man,
good.
Sean, I could talk to you for another hour. I seriously, I have like more things I want to ask or talk about or whatever. We're just gonna have to do another one of these sometime.
Let's do a
Uh,
part 2.
I
I'm
know,
down for
right?
part
We
2.
need to, and we also want to get an update on Cora and how you're doing, and when the next gigs are and all that stuff.
Yes.
Man, thank you so much for joining. It was a real blessing to get to meet and talk to you today.
Oh, thank you.
Truly was, and we're praying for Cora. Everybody, just a reminder: if you're watching now or watching the replay, there's a link down there, GoFundMe. Feel free to visit that and
Thank you.
drop some dollars over there to help that cause, and just hope you continue to do well, and man, thank you for your stories, all of them.
No
You
worries.
know,
I got plenty of more. Some of them are worse than those, but yeah.
that might
But we'll get
we'll do
we'll
like a
get we'll get
yeah,
we'll
that'll
do
that's
we'll do a
awesome.
follow-up. We'll do a follow-up, and, we'll ask some of the crazier questions maybe during that one, and maybe try to get off of the, maybe try to make some people laugh on the next one. What do you think?
Right, and we'll go for humor. It'll be great. Seriously, a great pleasure talking to you. I already texted Troy just now, and I said, "Hey, it's crazy. I'm talking to Sean right now," and sent him the
Mhm.
link. So that's just so cool. I'm so excited about all of it. All of it. So cool.
Amazing. It's amazing. Make sure, yeah, definitely come see us play this year. I don't, I was told that we're going to do less dates this year than we did last year, so I don't know, in the grand scheme of things what that looks like. I do know that we're going to be in Texas on Valentine's Day, much to my wife's chagrin,
Oh man,
but I've taken care of it, people. Don't worry.
don't worry. Where are you going to be
Taken
in
care of it.
Texas?
Oh gosh, you would ask me.
I'll go look it up
Yeah,
and find out.
I
I
think
have a gig myself Valentine's night too. So
we'll be in San Antonio.
okay, sweet, very
San
cool. Are you going to
Antonio.
be in Dallas at all?
Nah, not anytime soon, not that I can tell.
Gotcha.
Like I said, it's this year's gonna be an interesting year to see where it goes. And again, like I don't know the, obviously like not being a fly on the wall, I don't know the reasons why we're gonna kind of maybe do some less shows or things of that nature, but I'm sure there's good reasoning behind it. There's definitely Tyler is just he's one of those guys that like my God, like he is a hit writing song machine. Like it is it's insane to like everything that he sends us. Like it's so funny to listen to his songs because he'll be like, "Ah, we just wrote this one yesterday. It's probably a throwaway song. We'll listen to it." And we're like going, "That's a hit."
Yeah, I
Yeah.
I watched that Bon Jovi documentary, and he brought "Living on a Prayer" to the band. He's like, "Yeah, I don't think," and they're like, "What, dude? What?" And look at that. So yeah, sometimes the songwriter isn't quite aware of what's behind the song, man. I don't know. It's crazy. Well,
Well, my
cool.
love to you guys. Thank you so much for having me on here.
Yeah,
My love
thank
to all
you.
of you guys out there that are there and absolutely like you guys, I say it all the time on social media, but you all will never know. You'll never know. I don't know how to express enough my love and thankfulness to every one of you out there and just it's the only thing that I can do is express it through drums and playing and hopefully giving you a bow and a thank you at the end of the night. But you guys are amazing out there and I hope to someday find a way to do our own foundation through this. I've got it on my heart. We're going to figure that out. I think I've got some things that I wanted to do futuristically as far as our own foundation that I would love to continue calling it Chorus Crew. And so we'll figure that out, but we'll keep you posted on that as
Oh
it
heck
goes.
yeah! And if I can do anything to help, I have some experience in that whole thing. So let me know if I can help in any way. Okay.
Love it. That's great.
Take care, Sean, and we'll talk real soon. Okay, let's keep in touch.
Sounds great. God bless y'all. Be
Take
good.
care. God bless.
Bye bye.
All right, everybody, give it up for Sean. So cool having him on this evening, man. What a night.